Hello everyone, this is Nick Perry of Schaeffer's Investment Research with your chart slideshow for Thursday, January 11th, 2007. Today I am back with my weekly check of the broad market indices. In last week's chart slideshow we talked about the uptrends and we talked about support. If you look at the S&P, you've got support right around 1400 that we discussed. That was also right near the 50-day moving average. And if you followed the blog in the last couple of days, we've talked about the 50-day moving average. On the Dow, right in this zone here, we talked about support. The comp, which I said was probably the closest to being a worrisome chart, even though not drastically so, was still holding above support, and the rut had support right in there. And basically, the overall takeaway was that the uptrends were still intact, the indices were sitting on support, and we were sort of coming out of a period of light volume from the end of last year. So let's go ahead and look at this week's charts. If you've been following the action today, these charts are no surprise to you. We've seen a bit of a bounce here. You look at the SPX, it looks like we've got a bounce coming off the 50-day moving average. The Dow, somewhat of a bounce. The comp is probably the one that stands out the most, as we're sort of breaking above those recent peaks right there. And the rut had sort of been creeping lower. It tested that zone, flirted definitely with breaking below it, closed below its 50-day moving average, but today we see a move back above it. As far as what I'm looking at here, I think that this little bounce coming off this area right here on the Dow and the SPX, I think that's important to note. I say important just from a technical standpoint, that you've got definitely people who look for pullbacks to the 50-day moving average, and this bounce off of here may be something to entice some of those buyers. So what you want to kind of watch out for now is how we react at those peaks there. I didn't do a very good job of trying to illustrate what I'm looking at here. Basically that zone right there, the top of that little range, the SPX is sort of creeping up into it. The Dow be a little more successful in challenging those recent highs. So, what you'd like to see is after this pullback, you see a bounce. You'd like to see that it shows the ability to break through resistance. We've already seen that on the comp. As I mentioned earlier, this area right here, we're kind of pushing above those highs. If this breakout holds and we don't see some faltering momentum into the end of the day, that's a fairly encouraging sign on the comp, because basically you've got the strong uptrend. You've got the strong uptrend here. You've got the consolidation. And now you're seeing a breakout above that. So from a technical standpoint, that's actually a pretty good constructive pattern. I know I was talking about it was kind of faltering a little bit, but we never broke support, and it's now you're seeing some of the buyers return. The rut, slightly weaker in that it did break below its 50-day moving average, but back above. I don't have too many thoughts on on the significance of that. Other than the rut has kind of marched to the beat of its own drum, so I'm not sure I would need to see the rut do much with the 50-day moving average. Instead, I'd be looking for these peaks here. I'd be looking for a break above that. As it stands right now, it's sort of trapped in this range, so that's not there's not too much going on. Again, the comp looks like the most interesting situation right now. As far as overall takeaways, again, the uptrends remain intact, yada, yada, yada. The comp, I think, is the interesting situation to watch here. Right now, it's trading above those recent peaks. Keep an eye on that until the end of the day and the next couple of days to see if that holds. If it does, we may see some attention turn back to the comp. It's traditionally viewed as a leader. The tech sector is. That hasn't necessarily been the case recently, so that'll be an interesting situation to watch, that if we do see some momentum gain, what the reaction is to that. But that's what I'll be watching over the coming week. But as always, stay tuned to the blog for further updates.